Now let me introduce our first keynote speaker, who will take up a topic which is very modern topic, the topic of establishing a new specialty, modern materials and media. I'd like to introduce Stefan Wülfert to you. Stefan Wülfert, Professor Dr. Stefan Wülfert, is head of the Department of Conservation and Restoration and Deputy Director of the Bern University of the Arts. He holds a PhD in physical chemistry and started his working career related to the arts in 1992 at the Swiss Institute for Art Research in Zurich, where he introduced spectrometric methods within the framework of interdisciplinary research in art technology and the authentication of artworks. At the same time, he started teaching courses for conservator restorers at the former Bern School of Applied Arts. In 1999, Stefan's monograph, A Look into the Picture, was published. The book is still considered one of the standard works for analytical optical microscopy in art technology. In 2003, Stefan Wülfert also took over administrative responsibility for the future development of the conservation restoration courses in Bern. He promoted the development of specialization in different fields of conservation and founded, among others, the current major program, Modern Materials and Media, for the training of conservators restorers in the field of contemporary art. In 2010, he was nominated Deputy Director of Bern University of Applied Science Arts Department, and in 2019, he was elected by the Swiss Federal Council as President of the Swiss Commission for Monument Preservation. Stefan, we are very much looking forward to your keynote on establishing a new specialty, modern materials and media. Stefan, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Sebastian, for your kind introduction. I'm very grateful to the organizers of this conference to be able to take a short look back, only a short look, not a keynote, a short look back at the very beginnings of the modern materials and media specialization at our universities. And to be honest, I have very fond memories of that time. It was the end of 1999, and I was a quite young member of a quite young university's teaching staff for conservation restoration. We had a tradition of only 20 years of teaching then, but the main teachers, Ulrich Schiessel and Volker Scheible, as well as Sebastian Dobruskin, had earned a good reputation. Students at the time decided whether to specialize in the preservation of paintings and polychromed objects or on book and paper-based object conservation. My own task as a young chemist was to interlink material sciences and technical examination methods with the well-established teaching contents in the preservation curricula. At the time, we learned from the university's administration that it would be possible to establish new specializations, but only during a very limited period of time. The challenge of preserving contemporary art was in the air, and it was also clear that new concepts were required in the field. But did we also need new and dedicated training programs for young conservator restorers? Let's together think back to the year 1999 just for a moment. The legendary Modern Art Who Cares symposium just took place, and everyone was discussing the new decision-making model by the Netherlands Foundation for the Conservation of Modern Art, authored by a working group coordinated by Isbrand Hümmelen. In this same year, the Guggenheim Museum came up with its provocative Variable Media Initiative for media-based objects. We discussed it vividly. Was that really just a non-traditional new preservation strategy like they claimed? Or wasn't it more like a frontal attack on fundamental values that conservation restoration had been struggling for in the preceding decades? During a coffee break at the university, I could convince my colleague Barbara Spalinger, a conservator restorer for photographic objects, that we should use the time frame given by the university that we should in fact try to establish a new specialization, a specialization dedicated to modern materials and media. And we were not only allowed to do so, but also kindly supported by our colleagues. Later on, Barbara returned to photography, and she's still teaching the subject at our university. But the whole thing would never have happened if we had not had a group of innovative and brave students. Today's teachers, Dörte Döring, Mark Egger, Agathe Jacik, and Martina Pfenninger were among this pioneering student group at the time. Some months later, by the year 2000, we had already defined a small number of teaching modules, mainly from the existing programs, to be honest. But another year later, we had the first specialized and brand new training modules for modern materials and media. Things were developing faster and faster. At the time, the Swiss Federal Office of Culture, Bundesamt für Kultur, was also getting active in the field. Swiss Archives and Collection claimed that there was a great fear of losing important audiovisual materials due to the lack of dedicated preservation competences, as well as the lack of resources. Swiss artists claimed that there was not enough support for time-based media art production and mediation. As a consequence, the Federal Office supported and funded Sitemapping.Switzerland, an initiative to preserve and promote time-based media artworks in Switzerland. At one of the site mapping meetings, we became aware of an art historian who, having worked for years in contemporary video production, claimed to have been born with a screwdriver in his hand. Art historian, video maker with screwdriver competences, that was the person we really needed at the university. We were able to interest him in our new education program, and Johannes Kfeller was then for almost 10 years one of the defining figures in the Bern education. Only 1 year later, in 2001, we had the Zwischenflut and Flüchtigkeit conference that could be roughly translated to between flood and volatility in Bern. We were so proud of having so many important international speakers and contributors, among them great Jim Lindner from the United States. But let's stop it at this point, and let me say thank you again. Thank you to Anna Comiotto and Agathe Jacik, who redefined the program together with Mark Egger in the years that followed. Their studios also were crucial to establish a private market for the conservation and restoration of modern materials and media in Switzerland, giving an important professional perspective to the students. I am really immensely grateful to the people, especially to the students of the pioneering times, for being so courageous and also for taking over responsibility as teachers later on. I would also like to thank my colleagues at the time for their confidence and great support. And because I really cannot resist a little vanity, my short looking back may also indicate that at the beginning of the new millennium in Bern, at least we didn't do everything wrong. I say this because the funding of this program is less evident than it used to be today.